Up next in the broadcast, about 24 hostages remain trapped inside a chocolate cafe in Sydney, Australia, with the Korean consulate confirming that one of the hostages was a Korean Australian. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe successfully maintains his grip on power in the lower legislature, but with record-low voter turnout, it remains in question how much of a mandate he received for his floundering economic plan. North Korean state media blared the trumpets for a new era of Kim Jong-un ahead of the 3-year anniversary of the death of his father and former leader Kim Jong-il. Primetime News begins now. Welcome to the program. You're watching Primetime News. Hope your week is off to a great start. I'm Sean Lim.
And I'm Kang Se-ri. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. We begin with the hostage situation in Sydney, Australia, where police say dozens have been held captive since Monday morning, local time.
For more, we go now to Paul Yee, who's been following this story. Paul, what's the latest?
Well, about 6 hours into the siege, we saw 5 hostages making a dramatic escape from inside the Lindt Chocolate Cafe, which is located in downtown area of Martin Place. Seoul's foreign ministry and the Korean consulate there have confirmed that one of the rescued individuals is a Korean Australian. Police are interviewing those who have escaped, but it is unclear whether they got out on their own or if they were released by their captor. Amid the standoff, Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott addressed the nation and urged people to stay calm.
All right, Maria Jovanovic in our Canberra studios. Thanks so much.
Australia is a peaceful, open and generous society. Nothing should ever change that, and that's why I would urge all Australians today to go about their business as usual.
Abbott also provided a national security hotline should people suspect that another attack is in the works. He is scheduled to soon provide another update as we enter the 12th hour of this hostage situation.
So police have yet to identify the man who is behind this attack or hostage or siege, but there have been photos of hostages holding up a black flag with a white Arabic writing on it.
That's right. The flag raised suspicions that the attack could be linked to Islamic State militants. Some local news networks have reportedly made contact with those trapped inside the cafe, and they say that the lone gunman is threatening that 4 bombs have been planted around the city. Police, however, have warned against any speculation.
Look, the one thing that I can say is if people are being contacted by hostages, particularly the media, we'd ask that you put those people and ask them to ensure that the man inside speaks to police, speak to our trained negotiators. They're the people that can resolve this, that can help them in this situation.
Local and federal authorities have cordoned off the area and are also temporarily controlling the airspace above Sydney. They added that the number of hostages still inside cannot be confirmed at this time, but they have said the number is lower than 30. Back to you guys.
All right, still an ongoing situation that we'll keep an eye on. Thanks, Paul, for your reporting. And that was Paul live from the Arirang News Center. Let's move now to the latest elections in Japan, where Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has successfully maintained a majority in Japan's lower house.
But the record-low voter turnout showed that he needs to step up his game. Son Jung-il reports.
Japan's ruling coalition won a landslide victory in parliamentary elections seen as a referendum on Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's economic policy. Abe's Liberal Democratic Party, together with its junior partner Komeito, retained a 2/3 majority of 475 seats in the lower house of parliament, giving them the power to pass legislation without recourse to the upper house.
I'm relieved we've managed to continue our ruling coalition with the Komeito party. But at the same time, this is also a great responsibility.
It was a crushing defeat for the main opposition Democratic Party of Japan, falling well short of the 100 seats it had unofficially targeted. Many observers say the lack of a clear political alternative to the ruling party left many voters feeling underwhelmed and questioning the need of an election in the first place. And as if reflecting the people's indifference, voter turnout was 52%, the lowest figure since World War II, and well short of the previous low of 59% set in 2012. Abe is now widely expected to push ahead with expanding the role of the military and restarting Japan's nuclear power plants. The win also gives the Prime Minister a fresh 4-year mandate to institute his economic policy known as Abenomics, which aims at reviving Japan's economy through monetary easing and strong public spending. 손정인, Arirang News.
So how will Sunday's outcome affect the dynamics in Northeast Asia? Will it change the current South Korea-Japan ties? And what about Tokyo's relations with China? Our Lee Ji-yoon takes a look.
Will Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe try to mend relations with Korea and China? Experts are not very hopeful. They say because Abe won in overwhelming fashion on Sunday, he's likely to forge ahead with his right-wing agenda. Abe denies that Japan forced Korean women into sexual slavery during its colonial rule of the Korean peninsula. This has angered the Korean government, which continues to ask for an official apology and compensation for the victims. Politicians within Abe's ruling party have also denied the 1937 Nanjing massacre, in which tens of thousands of Chinese civilians were killed by invading Japanese soldiers. The list goes on. His repeated visits of Yasukuni Shrine that honors Japanese war criminals, false claims to Korea-controlled Dokdo Island in the East Sea, and efforts to revise the post-war constitution to militarize Japan. Experts say, though, that Japan does realize Korea and China as important economic and political partners, which means there's still a chance Abe might try a bit harder to deal with existing problems. As for now, eyes are on what Abe will say and do during the 70th anniversary of the end of the Second World War next year, and whether he will visit the Yasukuni Shrine again or offer a sincere apology for Japan's wartime atrocities. Lee Ji-yoon, Arirang News.
And the results of Japan's election opens up a clear path for the Prime Minister to forge ahead with Abenomics as well. His economic reform agenda is expected to have a global economic impact, especially on Korean exporters. Our Connie Lee has more.
Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's election win enables the leader to push on with Abenomics, his set of aggressive fiscal and monetary expansionary policies.
You know, we're talking about 1, 2, 3 years for certain reforms to come through, and I think that gives him a strong mandate.
But the stronghold of Abenomics is expected to hurt Korean producers and exports. Analysts say the value of the Japanese yen against the US dollar, the Korean won, and other currencies could continue to weaken and make Korean exports more expensive in the global market. This is bad news for Korean firms that compete with Japanese companies. So some advise that local businesses should strengthen their competitiveness during this time. The Prime Minister's Abenomics agenda was first introduced in 2012 to boost the economy. And despite controversy over its effects, it could stay as long as Abe stays in power until 2018. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
In 2 days' time, North Korea will observe the 3rd-year anniversary of the death of former North Korean leader Kim Jong-il. Ahead of the national event, the regime made clear that the true era of the current leader, Kim Jong-un, son of Kim Jong-il, would begin now. Our Hwang Sung-hee reports on Pyongyang's latest posturing.
North Korea has pledged to open a new era under Kim Jong-un's leadership. Ahead of the 3-year anniversary of the death of former leader Kim Jong-il, the state-run Nodongshinmun newspaper on Sunday said the last 3 years had been sacred and passed like a hot fireball. Listing the young Kim's Pyeongjin line, or the dual development of nuclear arms and the economy, and major construction projects, it labeled the last 3 years as historic, during which time the regime had become prosperous, both ideologically and materially. Pyongyang remains isolated from the world, but it has made strides in its military capabilities. North Korea has been increasing its accuracy rate of missiles through constant test firings, launching 111 missiles through 19 rounds this year. A senior South Korean military official says North Korea is running 30 nuclear-related institutions like nuclear power plants, and speculates Pyongyang possesses around 20 nuclear weapons, which is more than double the amount from a few years ago. Another official notes the North is close to being capable of attaching a miniaturized nuclear device on a Scud missile that could reach all corners of the Korean peninsula. Experts say North Korea's confidence level is higher than ever when it comes to war readiness, and that the regime could go ahead with a fourth nuclear test next year if things don't go their way on the diplomatic front. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
The last remaining symbol of inter-Korean cooperation, the Kaesong Industrial Complex, celebrates the 10th anniversary of its opening this month. But as our Connie Kim reports, the joint factory park apparently has not reached its full potential yet.
In December 2004, 1,000 pots were the first things to roll off the production line at the inter-Korean Kaesong Industrial Complex. Since that day 10 years ago, the complex has grown beyond all recognition. In the early days, there were just 15 South Korean businesses. Now, there are more than 120. The increase in the number of North Koreans is even more startling, jumping from 6,000 to well over 50,000 today. In terms of its economic benefits to the Koreas, South Korea has raked in more than $3 billion, while the North has brought in some $380 million since 2004. Now, that's not to say the Kaesong complex hasn't had its bumps along the way. The park is currently spread over some 3.3 million square kilometers. That might sound big, but that's just 5% of the original plan laid out. And just last year, Pyongyang unilaterally halted operations for 5 months amid heightened inter-Korean tensions. Despite the obstacles and unresolved issues, analysts say the industrial park is priceless in many ways.
The inter-Korean Kaesong Industrial Complex is a place that goes beyond merely learning about North Korea's market economy. It's where the two Koreas realize economic cooperation, and it's a small area where the two Koreas have reunified.
Professor Yang notes a private consortium needs to be established for the two Koreas to push for the globalization of the Kaesong complex. Now, if the joint park ever reaches its full potential, watchers say it could bring in over $68 billion worth of benefits for both Koreas. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
The first day of the National Assembly's extraordinary session was dominated by recent allegations that some of the president's aides were abusing their influence in the administration running the country. And with President Park losing public support over this scandal, the National Assembly Speaker had some strong words criticizing the president's communication skills. Choi Yoo-sun reports.
During an interpellation session Monday, Prime Minister Chung Eun-won flatly turned down allegations that neither President Park's brother Ji-man nor her former aide Chung Yun-hye could ever have the power or connections to call the shots behind the scenes. The opposition party claimed one of President Park's secretaries had failed to report a leaked document on her brother and his family back in May. Lawmaker Park Bum-gye grilled the Justice Minister over why the accounts of leaked documents were left unreported to the president. The Justice Minister, in response, said the prosecution was on the case. The 8 allegations have complicated matters for the rival parties, which had agreed on a month-long extraordinary session to pass a list of economy-related bills. Meeting with the top 3 members of the cabinet, National Assembly Speaker Chung Eui-hwa also cast worries about President Park's lack of communication with the parliament. Chung said the president should actively communicate with the parliament for the good of the nation, adding if the president is seeking parliamentary support to pass economy-related bills, she should make the request herself either by phone or in person at her office. While President Park remained tight-lipped, pollster Realmeter said her support rating dropped nearly 7 percentage points, hitting the 30% range for the first time since she took office early last year. Negative feedback on how the president is running the country, on the other hand, jumped more than 6 percentage points to record 52%. Choi Yoo-sun, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, President Park Geun-hye's brother, Ji-man, who is another heavyweight alleged to be in rivalry with Chung Yun-hye, appeared for questioning on this Monday. Prosecutors plan to probe him about his links to the so-called Group of Seven, alleged to have created the documents that say Chung has been exercising influence over the running of state affairs. Now, for this week's Industry Insight, we take a look at Korea's defense industry. South Korea has been a major buyer of Western military hardware, but it's reported to have seen growing exports in recent years as well. Our Kim Hyun-bin has more.
South Korea's defense exports have ballooned over the past 5 years or so. Until the early 2000s, the country's defense industry exports were mainly small arms and supplies, such as boots and helmets. The situation today is vastly different. In recent years, South Korea has been exporting heavy-duty military arms and vehicles, including fighter jets, submarines, and destroyers. This shift has dramatically boosted the nation's defense exports in dollar terms. In 2006, South Korea broke the $250 million mark for the first time. By 2011, this had jumped to $2.3 billion. And last year, the figure topped $3.4 billion. So what triggered the boom in sales?
Our prices compare favorably, and the nations that buy from South Korea are satisfied with what they get. All of our defense-related exports are used by the South Korean Army and are proven for battle. Also, as a lot of countries in the Southeast Asia are locked in territorial disputes with China, many now buy their defense-related equipment and supplies from South Korea instead of China.
The spillover effects from the defense deals to the economy have been sizable. Take, for example, the sale of 24 Fa-50 fighter jets to Iraq in 2013. Now, this deal, worth over $1.1 billion, will develop a chain of suppliers networks and after-sale deals that are estimated to total more than $4 billion. This project has also created roughly 36,000 jobs. While this sounds great, South Korea still has a long way to go to reach the level of the major players in the industry. The country's exports accounted for a mere 0.8% of the world's total defense exports. The United States, Russia, Britain, Germany, and France together have a grip on 3/4 of the total global arms market. And the dominant powers aren't sitting back as South Korea tries to sharpen its competitive edge.
The United States, France, Britain, and Germany are watching South Korea very closely as their competitors in the international arms market. Koreans should have pride in their defense industry and support government policies that make our country more competitive on the global stage.
South Korea has been successful so far, but to sustain and increase its share of the multi-billion-dollar arms market, the industry needs to diversify.
South Korea should open up to more markets in the third world. Most of them are in territorial conflicts and in need of naval equipment such as combat ships. In the future, we could make up to 3% of the total defense exports. But we need to invent new weaponry and upgrade our Korean-style weapons to meet global standards.
Competition is fiercer than ever, with Japan and China jumping into the defense market at full speed. For that reason, experts say the Korean government and the public need to stay committed and focused to maintain their growth in the international market. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
And taking a look at other international stories making headlines today, police in Hong Kong have arrested several pro-democracy activists as authorities shut down the last main protest camp in the city's center.
To tell us more, we turn back to Paul Yi at the news center. Paul, these demonstrations lasted for over 2 months in the Chinese-controlled territory. What's next?
Well, it's certainly the end of a historic chapter for the pro-democracy movement in Hong Kong, but many of the student leaders there have vowed to continue their campaign of civil disobedience. About 100 police officers swept into Causeway Bay on this Monday, dismantling the last barricades and tents. Some 20 demonstrators were forcibly escorted away from the site after refusing orders to vacate the occupied area. As the dust finally settles, activists and politicians believe China will likely launch a covert campaign across the former British colony to prevent further potential uprisings. And in Turkey, police have raided opposition media outlets across the country, drawing strong criticism from the European Union and other civic groups. The majority of organizations that were hit reportedly had close ties with Fethullah Gulen, a U.S.-based Muslim cleric who is seen as a threat to the current government. But some journalists see the raids as an attempt to silence the media.
This is an operation to silence the opposition and the media. Both Sama newspaper and Samanulu TV, their editors and executives are publishing the most serious stories on corruption and the graft probe.
Sunday's raids also saw the arrest of 24 people, including top media executives and 2 former police chiefs. President Tayyip Erdogan has labeled the group as a terrorist network, accusing them of conspiring to oust him from power. And finally, a medical student from South Africa has been crowned Miss World 2014. 22-year-old Rolene Strauss became the 3rd South African beauty queen ever to win the title of Miss World at a ceremony in London on Sunday.
I really would like to think that I'm shining the lights back in our country. You know, we've come so far, celebrating 20 years of democracy this year, being an example for the rest of the world that unity is possible.
Organizers say the 64th annual Miss World contest was broadcast live worldwide with an estimated audience of over 2 billion. During her year-long reign, Strauss will support global humanitarian causes, including the pageant's own charity group, Beauty with a Purpose. And that wraps up our look at international stories for now. I'll see you back here tomorrow.
Hello and welcome. I'm Stephen Che with a look at sports. First in the lineup, Kang Jung-ho's shot at Major League Baseball. The next in the Heroes shortstop is a step closer to the big stage after being posted by his team and the KBO. That means that the bidding war for the exclusive rights to negotiate with the 27-year-old infielder is on, with MLB teams taking part in a 4-day silent auction. The highest bidder, if accepted by his team, will have a 30-day window to negotiate a contract with Kang. Several teams, including the Oakland A's and the New York Mets, are reportedly interested in the slugger, who smacked 40 home runs this season. He's the 3rd Korean to be posted after SK's Kim Kwang-hyun and Kia's Yang Hyun-jong's unsuccessful attempts at the majors. And going to the games of the night, first up in the KBL, the league-leading Mobis Phoebus took on the Goyang Orions in Ulsan. And the first quarter ends tied 17-17, but a Mobis scoring drought in the second quarter turns out to be the turning point. The Orions go on to win and not only snap their 3-game skid, but also hand Mobis their first back-to-back loss this season. And moving on to pro volleyball, the ladies were in action first with the Korea Ginseng Corporation taking on the Korea Expressway Zenith. And the Zenith go ahead first and, despite dropping the second set, cruise to the important win over KGC 3-1. Also in Daejeon, the Samsung Hwajae Blue Fangs play out of the 2-0 deficit to force the 5th set. But there, the OK Savings Bank Russian Cash capitalize on unforced errors and earn the victory. Finally, the Los Angeles Lakers' Kobe Bryant passed Michael Jordan for 3rd on the NBA's all-time scoring list, a milestone reserved only for the legends of the game. The 36-year-old went into the Minnesota Timberwolves matchup shy 8 points of Jordan's mark, but broke past it in the second quarter after sinking the second of 2 free throws. Bryant finished the night with 26 points, putting his career points total at 32,310, and now stands behind Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Karl Malone on the list. And that's all I have for sports. Your weather's up next. Have a great evening.
Hello and welcome. I'm Kim Bo-kyung with your weather updates. We begin with news of heavy snowfall advisories that have been issued for areas in the central regions with sporadic flurries falling here in Seoul. Now brace yourselves for more snow as through tomorrow evening parts of Gangwon-do province may be in for more than 20 centimeters while most of the central regions are looking at about 2 to 8 centimeters. A heads up as snow will begin to pile up as temperatures drop overnight, especially in the inland regions as well as mountains down south. Other than that, Tuesday should be a clear winter day for other parts of the country. On to the readings. Seoul remains relatively cold at -3. Gwangju hits 3. Busan reaches 6. On to other regions. Daejeon makes it to -1. Jeju and Dokdo reach 7. Those are the updates we're following at this hour. Stay warm. I'll see you soon.
Thank you so much, Bo-kyung, and that's Primetime News for this Monday. I am Kang Tae-ri. Thanks for watching.
And I'm Sean Lim. Have a great evening. We'll see you soon.